Hi, everyone, and congrats on reaching the end of the semester. I'm Allison Showalter, and I did my paper on the role of internal communications and executive engagement in the post-pandemic workplace. So this is something that I am very passionate about because it is directly relevant to my career. So I was excited to undertake the research and the interview part of this project. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about what I learned in the research and also what I learned going through the project. So first, what the research showed. One of the first things that became very apparent to me going through the research is that the type of organization that someone is a part of directly influences the type of communications or executive engagement that they have an expectation for, and what they're going to be looking for in the future. So those more open, modern organizations where employees have more expectation of transparency, and more are used to more freedom are going to have different expectations in the post-pandemic workplace than more traditional ones that are used to command and control, where the executives are able to dictate more than an open organization. What I did find is that not all of the research would delineate between the types of organizations. So I found myself spending a lot of time trying to piece through and figure out which theories were relevant to more traditional organizations or open ones. And that was echoed in my interview subject because he had experience in both types of organizations. Um, then, when it comes to communications overall, everything is going to be about balance in the future of the workplace. So we're kind of on a pendulum. During the pandemic, we swung wildly to one side where we were really focused on the well-being of employees, their mental health, making sure that they were able to do their job and that they were not burnt out, and all the things that we were worried about during the pandemic as everybody went through that crisis. Now the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way, and organizations want to get back to business and focus on business results. Unfortunately, employees have gotten used to sitting on this more emotional side where the expectations are not as high and they're a little bit more comfortable. They're a little more taken care of. They have a little bit more of the power in the pandemic time period. Again, now the pendulum swinging back the other way. It probably will not go as far as we were before the pandemic, but a lot of research is talking about how the organizations are trying to balance the need for emotional security and mental health and well-being with driving accountability and business results. Speaking of that, when it comes to executive engagement, all of the research that I read really agrees that the value of an executive is their influence, but it can't be forced. So again, it's about balance. They can't force people to want to follow them or come into the office or do some of these things, and they can't expect blind obedience, even in those more traditional organizations. So it really becomes do as I say and as I do. So I'm going to show you the behavior that I want to see, and employees want to see that their executives are one of them and that they are living into the behaviors that they are asking of them. So I think we're going to continue to see that trend as we head into the future. Speaking of the future, the biggest thing I found is that it's a little too early to call it final on what the future of work looks like post pandemic. A lot of organizations are still trying to figure out. For a while, everybody was saying that the face of the workplace has changed forever and that organizations were never going to come back to the office in large numbers. We're definitely seeing now that organizations are coming back, but it's not necessarily for productivity. Most of it is actually based on culture and the need to connect with people, and it's just not the same over a computer screen. So we're still a little early on saying that we have reached the future of the workplace. Then if I look at what I learned while going through this, building off of what the research found is that it felt like a lot of the research was still theoretical. It was a lot of we think this could potentially hypothesis and things like that. So I'd like to do this research again, maybe in a couple years when there's a little more space between the pandemic and the current time. The other thing I found was narrowing the scope was really difficult. There's a lot of ways that I could have taken the research, and I spent probably most of my time just really trying to hone in on what did I want to talk about. I didn't want to focus just on executive engagement or just on internal communications. So I found the combination of them felt the most fruitful and was the most interesting to me. So I feel like I did an okay job of narrowing the scope, but it was a lot of stuff, and that took a lot of my time. And finally, there's not a one size fits all solution for what the future of work looks like. Again, it's going to depend on the type of organization that you work for. And so again, I think there's a lot of ways I could go with the research, but that's what I learned. And thank you.